Over 600,000 to be deported. The message is clear: arrive illegally, leave immediately, never return. In London, the battle lines for the soul of Britain have been drawn, and they are etched not in parliamentary rhetoric, but in a draconian blueprint for mass expulsion that has sent shockwaves through Whitehall. At the heart of this seismic political shift is the Reform UK leadership and their brazen Operation Restoring Justice, a strategy so aggressive it makes previous Conservative migration policies look positively timid. Nigel Farage has thrown down the gauntlet to Prime Minister Keir Starmer, unveiling a plan that proposes the largest deportation event in British history. The objective is stark and uncompromising: the removal of over 600,000 illegal migrants. This is not merely a policy proposal. It is a declaration of logistical warfare against the status quo. The blueprint calls for the immediate mobilization of 6,000 specialized enforcement officers, explicitly modeled on the uncompromising tactics of American ICE units. With 5 military-grade deportation flights scheduled to launch every single day, the plan represents a militarization of the border that the British public has never seen before. The strategy extends to the English Channel, where the Royal Navy would be deployed for 247 patrols, a constant, impenetrable ring of steel designed to slash illegal arrivals from 1,000 a day to a mere trickle. But the true dynamite lies in the projected fallout on national crime statistics. Proponents of the plan argue that this is not just about immigration, it is a desperate bid to save Britain's streets. Analysts backing the initiative have released explosive data suggesting that if executed, violent crime could plummet by 43%. More specifically, they predict a 7-fold drop in the machete attacks that have terrorized London, and the immediate neutralization of over 2,500 active operatives within grooming gangs, predators who have operated with impunity in northern towns for decades. The logic presented is brutal but effective: remove the soldiers, and you end the war on our streets. Yet, this red line strategy faces an immovable object: number 10. By threatening to withdraw from the European Court of Human Rights, ECHR, to facilitate these flights, Farage is not just challenging migration figures, he is challenging the very legal framework of the United Kingdom. As petitions garner hundreds of thousands of signatures, the message from the populist right is deafening: the only thing standing between Britain and safety is the government's refusal to act. In Westminster, Prime Minister Keir Starmer did not merely reject the opposition's deportation proposal, he incinerated it. Labeling the plan racist, intolerant, and impossible, number 10 made its stance unequivocal: the state would not countenance what it deemed a violation of international law. But this rigid adherence to the moral high ground may have inadvertently lit the fuse on a powder keg that has been simmering in England's towns for years. The rejection was the spark. The resulting explosion has left the government scrambling to regain control of the narrative. The reaction on the streets was instant, visceral, and combustible. By 7:20 p.m., the atmosphere outside Parliament had shifted from democratic protest to near insurrection. Chants branding Starmer, Britain's #1 traitor, rang out across the capital, a chilling indicator that the electorate's patience has snapped. The unrest was not contained to Westminster. In a coordinated display of fury, 5 hotels requisitioned to house asylum seekers were surrounded by crowds demanding answers. The state's response was swift and heavy-handed: deploy the shield wall. However, the optics were disastrous. At 7:34 p.m., as bottles rained down and 16 volleys of fireworks were fired directly into police platoons, the thin blue line began to buckle, forcing officers to retreat to avoid casualties. Starmer took to the airwaves to condemn hatred, insisting that no person should be deported based on nationality. But his solemn words were drowned out by a terrifying reality breaking on social media feeds. a machete attack on 2 women in South London. The timing could not have been worse. This juxtaposition has fueled accusations of a two-tier policing strategy. While mobs were incensed by reports of fresh violence on the streets, the police were accused of mobilizing entire platoons to arrest a 74-year-old grandmother, while seemingly remaining powerless to stop the chaos elsewhere. Nigel Farage seized on this disparity, highlighting the grim irony. Over 12,000 arrests for radical Facebook posts, yet a viral TikTok video, racking up 8.2 million views in hours, showed 280 undocumented migrants storming a British beach, completely unopposed. The government's defense, that they are merely cleaning up the mess of the previous administration, is falling on deaf ears. With leaks suggesting Starmer's long-term strategy relies on a new electoral base tethered by social benefits, the accusation from the right is no longer just incompetence. It is calculated national self-destruction. The streets are burning, and to many observers, it appears the government is fighting its own citizens rather than securing its borders. Beneath the smoke of burning riot vans lies a far more insidious development, one that threatens to unravel the very fabric of British democracy, the alleged weaponization of the state against its own citizens. Critics are now openly calling it an Orwellian shift, arguing that under Sir Keir Starmer's premiership, the machinery of government has been turned inward, not to protect the populace, but to silence it. Nigel Farage has branded this the era of state-sponsored intimidation, asserting that the Prime Minister has abdicated his role as a guardian of liberty to become the chief prosecutor against dissent. The statistics are staggering and paint a picture of a nation under a digital siege. While machete-wielding gangs reportedly operate with startling impunity, the full weight of the law is crashing down on keyboard warriors. With over 12,000 arrests linked to radical, social media activity, the message from Whitehall is chillingly clear. A 20-month prison sentence awaits those who tweet the wrong opinion, while those who physically storm the beaches face de-escalation. This disparity has given rise to the toxic perception of a two-tier justice system. The silent majority, millions of voters who opposed mass migration, but refused to riot, have not gone quiet out of apathy, but out of pure, calculated fear. Ordinary Britons now navigate a minefield of speech laws where HR departments act as enforcement wings of the government, and police forces monitor Twitter with the same zeal they once reserved for counterterrorism. The rules of engagement, according to the opposition, are rigged. Scream anti-British slogans in a London march, and you are exercising a democratic right. Whisper a complaint about a migrant hotel in a pub, and you are inciting hatred. The result is a culture of whispers, reminiscent of Soviet-era paranoia. Fathers are reportedly terrified to speak freely before their children's teachers. Employees sit in silence in canteens, fearful that a single misplaced word could end their careers. But Farage warns that this silence is deceptive. It is not the silence of agreement, but the dangerous quiet of a pressure cooker. By driving opposition underground and criminalizing the anxieties of the working class, the government hasn't crushed the dissent, it has simply removed the safety valve. Millions are now biting their tongues while their anger intensifies, waiting for the only sanctuary left where anonymity is guaranteed, the ballot box. London, beyond the culture wars and the burning streets, a cold, hard economic reality is biting the British taxpayer. The debate over Operation Restoring Justice is not merely about ideology, it is about the solvency of the nation. Reform UK's proponents argue that the current government's refusal to act is a choice to bankrupt Britain rather than secure it, turning a border crisis into a full-blown financial catastrophe. The numbers presented by the opposition are eye-watering. With the deportation flights grounded, the daily bill for housing asylum seekers in hotels continues to hemorrhage a staggering £8 million every single morning. This, Farage argues, represents a direct wealth transfer from the struggling working class to the very individuals breaking the law. Coastal towns, once thriving tourist hubs, are watching their local economies die as hotels are requisitioned indefinitely, effectively turning holiday resorts into holding camps. The mathematical certainty offered by the opposition is blunt: remove the people, remove the cost. But the argument cuts deeper than just the balance sheet. It strikes at the heart of public safety. Farage's team posits a direct correlation between the undocumented population and the explosion in street crime. The logic is that without legal work, crime becomes the only viable income for illegal entrants. This theft economy is blamed for the epidemic of phone snatching in London, where a device is stolen every 3 minutes, and the terrified, one eye open, sleep of suburban neighborhoods. The opposition's projection is that deporting 600,000 illegal migrants would cause this theft economy to collapse overnight, with estimates showing phone snatches dropping by 120,000 incidents a year. Furthermore, the plan promises to shatter the postcode wars fought with zombie knives and the intertribal violence bleeding into British districts. By removing the soldiers of these foreign national networks, the opposition claims insurance premiums for small businesses would plummet and police could return to fighting British crime rather than acting as social workers. To the government, this is fantasy. To the terrified shopkeeper and the mugged commuter, it sounds like necessary sanitation. As the dust settles on a week of rage and recrimination, it is becoming clear that the conflict consuming Britain is no longer merely about migration numbers or crime statistics. It has mutated into a fundamental battle over the very definition of national sovereignty. The rejection of Operation Restoring Justice has exposed the hard limit of British independence, the jurisdiction of the European Court of Human Rights, ECHR, in Strasbourg. This is the nuclear option at the heart of the Reform UK roadmap. Nigel Farage argues that as long as foreign judges hold veto power over British borders, the nation is independent in name only. His proposal to withdraw from the ECHR is framed not as a radical gamble, but as a necessary precondition for survival, a way to clear the legal runway for RAF deportation flights. Prime Minister Starmer, conversely, views this as a diplomatic catastrophe, warning that abandoning these treaties would align Britain with pariah states and isolate the UK on the global stage. But while the politicians debate legal frameworks, a more dangerous phenomenon is taking root in the electorate. Starmer may believe he has crushed the opposition by jailing the loudest voices and effectively banning the deportation plan, but analysts warn he has simply committed a grave strategic error. He has driven the opposition underground. The silent majority has not vanished. They are hiding in plain sight, waiting for the moment when the ballot box offers the anonymity that the public square no longer provides. The government's refusal to engage with the core grievances of its citizens, dismissing safety concerns as far-right rhetoric, has severed the social contract. The electorate sees a government willing to wreck the budget and endanger women and children rather than implement a politically incorrect solution. The silence currently blanketing the country is not peace. It is the holding of breath before the plunge. The rejection of the deportation plan was meant to end the crisis. Instead, it may have just guaranteed that the next election will be fought not on policy, but on the survival of the British nation itself.